Hello again, YouTube. This is Veteran Mountain Man talking to you today about an idea that I've been seeing bantered about out there on the internet. Especially here on Minds.com and on YouTube, there is a gentleman up in Canada named Scott who is advocating for true democracy, pure democracy, a true everybody votes on everything type solution situation. Well, that sounds really good for people like you and me who keep themselves informed if you look at it just on the surface. When you actually start looking at the logistics of a true democracy instead of a representative democracy or a representative republic, you see that there are some fundamental downfalls. The first and foremost biggest fundamental downfall of a true democracy over a representative democracy or republic is that everybody has to vote. And we're not just talking about everybody has to vote once a year or everybody has to vote once every other year. We're talking people would have to vote every day on things. Every day. Every day. Now let that sink in. If you take a country the size of Canada, which is about 36 million people, getting them all to vote every day on what the country needs voted on is kind of like herding cats. And if you don't accomplish everything you need to accomplish, nobody gets any work done, and you're behind. And so a true democracy, a everybody votes democracy, is fundamentally flawed in that simple respect. But there's some more that we can go on here. Now, how do other forms of governments fix that? Well, they use representative voting. Okay, so a representative democracy like a parliamentary democracy, you vote for members of parliament, and those members of parliament represent you as the population voting. In a republic, like we have here in the United States, we elect our congressmen and our senators, and they vote for us. Now, each state gets 2 senators, and each state gets a number of representatives based off population, which are our congressmen, or our members of the House of Congress. But we still don't vote every day. That's why here in America we have a republic, and why in Canada you have a representative democracy. There is no country in the world that uses pure democracy, because in and of itself, a pure democracy collapses because no work gets done. You have to spend all of your time governing and no time working. And so you end up with either people not participating or the system collapsing in on itself. Now, the second problem with pure democracy is that in order to get everyone to vote, in order to hold a vote, you have to reach what's called a quorum. And under most either republic or democratic methodologies, a quorum is usually between 70 and 60% of the total voting population to show up. Now, here in the United States, we have a fundamental problem. We get about 30% of the public voting. 30%. So our public votes every other year for representatives and legislators, and every 4 years for a president. And our governors are mostly every 4 years, and our state representatives are every 2 to 4 years. And we can barely get 30% of the population to show up. Here in Oregon, it's even worse, because here in Oregon, you don't even have to show up to a poll. They send you your ballot. They mail it to you. All you have to do is with a black pen, fill it out, sign the envelope, seal it back up, and drop it off at one of the ballot collection centers on your way about your normal daily business. If you want, you can put a stamp on the front envelope and stick it in your freaking mailbox, and they will mail it back. That's it. And yet, Oregon still has one of the lowest voting participation numbers in the United States. And I would like to see us go back to poll voting because it might actually increase the numbers, because it will make it more important to people, because they'll have to get up off their tuchus and go do the voting. Now, that being said, if you set the quorum at, say, 60%, that means you have to have 60% of the population show up to cast a ballot. And if you decide you want to set your quorum below half, well, now you're not even representing half of your population, because half of them aren't even going to show up to vote. So you're going to end up with what looks more like a representative democracy than a true democracy. No true democracy has ever moved into the size of anything beyond a couple of dozen families. And that's just because no work gets done in a true democracy when you're so busy governing yourselves. So, the third problem with a true democracy is that the citizenry control the purse. So what are citizens going to do? Well, they're going to vote themselves more money. It happens all the time, even in representative democracies, that the democratic process ends up voting more money. Here in the United States, we have a problem with it as well. We're $20 trillion in debt. That comes from nothing more than the Congress and the Senate voting the country more money. And you want to think that people won't do it, especially when the poor are going to be voting? Now, if you change your definition of who gets to vote, and it has to be, let's say, we go back to something like you have to own land and you have to be, worth so much money and have some sort of standing in the community, well, then you're going to be restricting people from voting. And that's going to turn back the last 200 years and the move towards populism. And it will end up creating a very specialized class of citizenry that have the vote and everybody else doesn't. And how do you determine who is worthy to be voting in that situation? I know I don't want random people determining who gets to say how I'm governed. I have bled for no taxation without representation. I have bled to keep my country free. I don't want somebody else making all the decisions for me without any say-so of mine. So that is the downfall of a true democracy. And for those of you supporting true democracy, you should seriously think about what it is you're putting out there, because it doesn't work. It really doesn't. Well, I want to thank you all again for joining me. Please like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. Feel free to comment. I will check the comments and respond back. Also, feel free to follow me over to minds.com/veteran mountain man and enter into discourse there. I like to talk to people. I will respond as long as I see your comment and try to engage you in a conversation as long as there's something to talk about. Thank you all again for joining me here on YouTube to discuss true democracy, and I hope you have a good day.